Peace be upon you all. In the previous video, we talked about a great man, a man who stood beside the Prophet Muhammad through the most difficult moments of the early Islamic mission. We told the story of the first leader of the Muslim world after the Prophet, Abu Bakr, may Allah be pleased with him. But the story of the rightly guided caliphs did not end with Abu Bakr. After him came another leader, a man very different in personality, yet just as extraordinary in his impact. A man feared by kings, a man whose justice shook great empires, and a man deeply loved by the poor. A man who once stood as an enemy of Islam, but later became one of its greatest champions. He was known as Al-Faruq. His name was Umar ibn Al-Khattab. How did this man transform from one of Islam's fiercest opponents into one of the greatest leaders in history? And how did he manage, in only 10 years, to change the course of the world? This is the story of Umar ibn Al-Khattab. Throughout history, many leaders have risen to power, but only a few have truly changed the course of history. Only a few left behind a legacy so powerful that their names are remembered centuries later. Among those names stands a man whose justice shook empires, a man so strong in faith that even the devil was said to avoid his path. He was known as Al-Faruq, the one who distinguishes truth from falsehood. His name was Umar ibn Al-Khattab. But the most surprising part of Umar's story is that he did not begin as a Muslim. In fact, he began as one of Islam's fiercest enemies. Umar ibn Al-Khattab was born in Mecca around the year 584 CE, about 13 years after the year of the elephant. He belonged to the powerful Quraysh tribe. From a young age, Umar was known for his strength. He was tall, physically powerful, and possessed a commanding presence that made people respect and sometimes fear him. Unlike most people in Arabia at the time, Umar could read and write. This gave him a unique advantage in a society where literacy was rare. He worked as a merchant and traveled between Mecca and the lands of Syria, gaining experience and knowledge about different people and cultures. But Umar was also a man of strong convictions, so when a new message began spreading through Mecca, a message calling people to worship only one God, Umar strongly opposed it. That message was brought by the Prophet Muhammad. To Umar and many leaders of Quraysh, this new religion threatened their traditions, their power, and their society. As the message of Islam grew stronger, Umar's anger grew stronger as well. Until one day, he made a decision that would change history. Umar left his house carrying his sword, determined to kill the Prophet Muhammad and end the new religion once and for all. As he walked through the streets of Mecca, filled with anger and determination, a man stopped him and asked where he was going. When Umar revealed his plan, the man replied with shocking news. "Before you go to Muhammad," he said, "you should take care of your own family first. Your sister has already accepted his religion." Umar froze. His own sister had become a Muslim? Furious, he turned around and rushed to her house. When he entered, he found his sister and her husband reading verses from the Quran. Anger exploded inside him. He demanded to see the pages they were reading. At first they refused, but eventually Umar took the parchment and began to read. The verses were from Surah Taha, and as Umar read those words, something unexpected began to happen. The anger inside his heart slowly faded. The beauty of the words, the depth of their meaning, began to move him. He stopped reading for a moment and said quietly, "How beautiful these words are." In that moment, Umar's heart began to change. He asked to be taken to the Prophet Muhammad. He walked to the house of Al-Arqam, where the early Muslims secretly gathered. When Umar knocked on the door, the companions inside were afraid. Umar had been known as one of Islam's strongest enemies, but the Prophet Muhammad ordered them to open the door. Umar entered the room. He stood before the Prophet and spoke the words that would change his life forever. "I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and that Muhammad is the messenger of Allah." The companions erupted in joy. Their voices of Allahu Akbar echoed through the streets of Mecca. Umar's conversion was a turning point for the Muslim community. The companion Abdullah ibn Masud later said, "We were never strong until Umar accepted Islam." From that day forward, Umar became one of the strongest defenders of Islam. When the Muslims later migrated from Mecca to Medina, most of them left secretly to avoid persecution. But Umar did something no one else dared to do. He went to the Kaaba, prayed openly, and then stood before the people of Quraysh. He declared loudly, "Whoever wishes his mother to lose him, his children to become orphans, and his wife to become a widow, let him meet me behind this valley." Then he walked out of Mecca in broad daylight. No one dared to stop him. In Medina, Umar became one of the closest companions of the Prophet Muhammad. He fought beside him in the great battles of Islam, Badr, Uhud, the Trench, and the conquest of Mecca. The Prophet often consulted Umar in important matters. His wisdom, strength, and honesty made him one of the most trusted companions. After the death of the Prophet Muhammad, the leadership of the Muslim community passed to Abu Bakr, the first caliph. Umar served as his closest advisor. Then, in the year 634 CE, after Abu Bakr passed away, Umar ibn Al-Khattab became the second caliph of the Muslim world. What followed was one of the most extraordinary periods in Islamic history. During Umar's 10 years of leadership, the Muslim state expanded dramatically. The mighty Persian Empire collapsed. The armies of the Byzantine Empire were defeated. Muslim forces entered Syria, Iraq, Egypt, and Persia. One of the most historic moments of Umar's leadership was the peaceful surrender of Jerusalem. The people of the city insisted that the keys be handed directly to the caliph himself. So Umar traveled from Medina to Jerusalem. When he arrived, people were astonished by what they saw. This was the ruler of a vast empire. Yet he wore simple clothes and rode a camel shared with his servant. They took turns riding it. Sometimes the servant rode while Umar walked. This was not the image of a king. This was the image of a just leader. But the greatest quality of Umar ibn Al-Khattab was not his military success. It was his justice. Umar feared injustice more than he feared his enemies. He once said a famous statement, "If a mule were to stumble in Iraq, I fear that Allah would ask me on the day of judgment why I did not smooth the road for it." At night, Umar would walk through the streets of Medina to check on the condition of his people. One night he heard children crying in a tent. When he approached, he saw a mother boiling water in a pot. The children believed food was coming, but in reality, the pot contained nothing. The mother was only trying to comfort them until they fell asleep. When Umar saw this, tears filled his eyes. He rushed to the public treasury, filled a sack with flour, and carried it on his own back. His servant offered to carry it for him, but Umar replied with unforgettable words, "Will you carry my burden for me on the day of judgment?" He carried the food himself and cooked it for the children. This was Umar, the ruler of a vast empire, serving the poor with his own hands. But every story must come to an end. In the year 644 CE, while leading the dawn prayer in the Prophet's mosque in Medina, Umar was attacked and stabbed by a man named Abu Lulu al-Fayruz. The wound was fatal. For 3 days, Umar struggled with the injury. Then the great leader passed away. He was 63 years old, the same age as the Prophet Muhammad when he died. Umar ibn Al-Khattab was buried beside the Prophet Muhammad and Abu Bakr. His life had come to an end, but his legacy never did. For centuries, historians, Muslim and non-Muslim alike, have remembered Umar as one of the greatest rulers in human history. A man who conquered lands, but more importantly, conquered hearts. A leader who ruled millions, yet feared God more than anything else, and that is why history remembers him by one title above all, Al-Faruq. And with that, we've reached the end of today's story. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see more stories like this, make sure to write in the comments which historical figure or story you'd like us to cover next. Don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new video. Together, we continue learning from the strength, character, and wisdom of the companions of the Prophet. See you in the next video.